U.S. climate envoy John Kerry, as well as officials from 24 African nations, held a preparatory meeting in Egypt ahead of COP27, during which Kerry pointed out that it costs more not to respond to climate change than to respond. However, financing has been a challenge, especially for African nations.
So trying to solve that problem can go forever, complaining about the fact that climate finance, like development finance, is insufficient, inefficient, and costly. Insufficient because of the gaps that you mentioned. Inefficient because for some funds, it takes them 3 to 4 years to release the money from the day they start shaking hands with ministers. And the fact that it's costly because in many cases, countries, developing economies, are pushed to borrow at a very high cost in order to deal with the priorities for adaptation mitigation.
The three-day meeting, which gathers African ministers of finance, economy and environment, comes after African leaders lashed out at industrialized nations for their absence at the Africa Adaptation Summit.
Of course, look, we're all conscious of the urgency of this, which is why those commitments were made. We're all conscious that the world has left this exceptionally late to mainstream and take seriously. We're all conscious that it took 11 years from that Copenhagen commitment to a form of commitment in Glasgow.
The African continent is one of the lowest CO2 emitters, and yet it is among the most affected, with notably worsening droughts and floods, as well as limited adaptation funds. Addressing the financial constraints, Kerry said no government in the world has enough money to pay. He also urged the private sector to become an active participant and help finance the transition.